Hello friends, today we are going to see about taxonomical aids. Now, with reference to taxonomy, we are now clear with what taxonomy is and what are the categories or levels of the taxonomy. Now, if we want to classify the organism or we want to study the classification, that is taxonomy. So, we want to have some help of a particular type of references, and those references which are helping us to understand the classification, to study the classification, are known as the taxonomical aids. So, these are the references, tools which are important for us to study the classification or diversity. Now, we have very vast range of the taxonomical aids around us, and very first of all is the herbaria or herbarium. Now, herbarium is a particular place where you can keep varieties of plant, store the plant specimen with a particular process. So, it is the storehouse or repository of plant specimen which are dried, pressed and preserved on particular sheet of paper, and they are specially arranged according to universally accepted classification. So, how, let us consider or let us try to understand the process of keeping the plant into the herbarium, how we can store it. For an example, a particular individual is into the field to understand the biodiversity. He or she has found a particular type of species of plant. So, he or she is supposed to take a small cut part or specimen of that particular plant, which must contain very few basic parts of that particular specimen. For example, if you see this diagram, it is having a very particular type of, for example, it is very short branch, that is twig. It is also consisting the leaf. It is very nicely containing particular type of flower, maybe the other parts called buds, if it is possible, spikes, if it is having, so etc. Maximum number of the parts of the plant, if he or she able to collect, he or she is to select that kind of short segment of the plant. After collecting it, it is supposed to make them or it has to preserve them in a particular manner. For example, on the top of the table, he or she has to put the plant and has to put a huge load of weight on it, and before putting the weight onto it, that particular plant or specimen has to kept between either a particular set of papers, for example newspaper or filter paper. Now due to the weight which is falling on them, it will be dehydrated. So entire water from the plant will be come out and will be sucked by the papers due to the weight, and that is how it will be dried off. So that particular specimen will become very dry in a state. So this kind of dried specimen you can produce by putting weight onto them. Ready? So this is dried. So drying is that. So by drying you can produce this kind of specimen. Then it is due to the pressed, we have put huge weight onto them to dry. So dried, pressed and preserved. Now you are supposed to take a particular type of paper sheet. It is called herbarium sheet. You are supposed to place your specimen very carefully so that none of the part of your collected specimen is broken down. So you are supposed to be very careful by in placing the specimen on the herbarium sheet. You are supposed to tie it either with thread or with sellotape or with a gum, whichever suitable method you can find. On the right bottom corner, you are supposed to write all the necessary evidences and classification of a particular species of the plant. For example, it is collected by whom, it is collected from which place, what is common name, what is scientific name, and entire classification, date of collection, season of the collection, etc. So these will help you to understand the diversity, the classification, and this is a use of that particular herbarium. So this method of preserving plant is based on dried, that is non-living plant, not into the living condition. So that's you are supposed to remember. Ready? So this is what herbarium sheet are labeled with information about the date, as I said earlier, place of the collection, English, that is local name, botanical name, that is scientific name, its family, that is entire set of classification, and collector's name, who has collected that specimen. Ready? So that's the story of the herbarium, what we find. Please take the screenshot. Now with reference to herbarium, if you see here, you can find a particular type of the other example of the herbarium and the other plant which is shown, and this is the information which is given. So this is information and this is the specimen, right? They are placed, these sheets are placed into the particular set of cupboards which are even given the names. For example, this is cupboard A, cupboard B, cupboard C, cupboard D, cupboard E, and cupboard F. That is rack number 1, rack number 2, rack number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It is depending on the caretaker who is taking care of it, that how it is given the name, but that is how you can find the references. So entire list of the specimen which are present into a particular herbaria is at the herbarium keeper, and by taking a reference where this particular plant is found in which cupboard, which rake, you can take it for the references of understanding the classification. Ready? So that's what the story of the herbaria. Second important taxonomical aid is botanical garden. Now, botanical garden is what? It is a specialized garden having collection of living plant, not dead or collected specimen, for reference or identification. Now, each plant here is labeled with its botanical name and entire classification or family as well. So, specifically, why the word specialized garden is used? Because it is not a common garden, right? Here it is into the particular place varieties of the species from all around the world has to be kept. For example, if I talk about a particular place nearby into our nearby territory, we can place the species from Himalayan range, we can place a species of Rajasthan desert as well, we can place species of the rainforest of Arunachal Pradesh as well, we can place the species of the Konkan region as well, that is Kerala or blah blah species. But for that, botanical gardens are facilitated with different kind of artificial arrangements. Why? Because if I want to grow a species of desert, it is definitely grow into the a particular type of environment only. For example, into the desert land. So I need to collect a huge set of sand. I need to keep it into the particular place so that I can grow a particular species on them. If I talk about the species of Himalayan range I want to grow, then it is necessary that I should provide cold temperature to those species to grow. So this kind of specific condition are to be provided to special type of plant in terms of growing them at a particular place called botanical garden. So we need to provide varieties of different condition for them to grow in a single small region called botanical garden. Again, they are labeled with a particular local name, their scientific name and entire classification, so that we can take it as a reference. Here the example which is given is are, not is but are, of famous botanical garden number 1, Royal Botanical Garden, that is into Kew, England. Indian Botanical Garden, that is in Howrah, West Bengal, and National Botanical Garden, that is in Lucknow. So these are few examples of the botanical garden which are there. So in botanical garden, you are supposed to remember that it is collection of the living plant, not the specimens. Now, third number of the taxonomical aid is biological museum. Now, in museum, it is a collection of preserved plant plus preserved animal both, just for the sake of only study and reference. If you see the example which are given, it is having a special type of arrangement where dead or preserved plants and animals are kept. Plants are preserved with the method of the herbarium, and animals are also preserved with suitable method. There are so many different methods of preservation of animals. The example which is given here is stuffing. In stuffing, the specimen is cut off, dried off, clean off, and stuffed with the either cotton or the other material with the preservators, so that it can be preserved for years and years, very long time. Small insects can be preserved into the insect box by drying off first, and then they are placed into particular box called insect box. So, this is the story of museum. So, in museum you can place a particular type of specimen of plants and animals. Please take the screenshot. Now, museum contains specimen which are preserved into preservative solution in containers or jars. If you see here, you can find so many different specimen which are found in different jars or containers, which is filled with a particular type of solution, and that solution is preservative solution. Even we can store the specimen in dry states, right? So, some specimen are dried off and they can be stored. Varieties of plants and animals are stored like that. Insects are preserved into the insect box by collecting, killing and pinning them. Ready? Now, stuffing is the method of preservation of large animals like birds or mammals. Now, collections of animal skeletons are also found into the museum. So, museum is also containing a particular type of skeleton of the animals. So, these are the varieties of the method of preservation or keeping the specimen of plants and animals in museum. This is the other example of the specimen which are kept into the museum, if you see. So, these are the varieties of the method of the, this is insects box, right? Varieties of insects are kept into insect box. If you see the different kind of insect box here. So, this way preservation is done in museum. This is the stuffed animals which are collected, stuffed and placed into the museum. Ready? This is a stuffing of mammoth. These are the skeletons. of various types. This is human skeleton and this is mammoth skeleton. So that's the story of taxonomical aids, which is called biological museum. Now if I talk about zoological park, it is the place where you can keep animal in a living condition. So live wild animals are kept in a particular region, particular place, which is called zoological parks or zoo. They are kept in protected environment under human care. So we are supposed to take care of them and we are learn about their food habits and behavior by keeping them. Zoological park are very important as far as caring the animals and breeding the animals as well. Right? So it is ex situ conservation method where you can take care of animals by keeping them in a particular place. Again, like the botanical garden, we can keep varieties of different species in a particular park, particular area, but we are supposed to take care that we are supposed to provide them a particular suitable condition. We also may have to create artificial ponds, artificial nets, artificial desert, etc. So necessary condition has to be provided to the varieties of the animals so that they can find homely atmosphere and they can survive for the longer period of the time. Ready? So please take the screenshot of this slide. So that's where we are ending the session. We have learned 4 basic types of the taxonomical aid, right? We have gone through number 1 herbarium, right? Number 2 botanical garden, number 3 biological museum, and number 4 zoo, that is zoological park. So these are the most commonly utilized taxonomical aid with reference to taxonomical studies or learning the classification. In the last lecture, we are going to study about very specific taxonomical aids. These are the common most, but a specific type of taxonomical aids will be covered into the next lecture. So till then, have a nice time and take care.